you know the best thing about being from Tipperary? Here and I tell you now. Owen Kelly, Bubbles Dwyer, Paddy Maher, Jimmy Dial, Clonmel Town, Declan Brown, Pat Short, Shane McGowan.
Upper Church, Drumban, Rossmore, Borland, Care, Ballyporeen, Una Healy, Danbury. Carrickshore, Swanner, Davin, my round. What you having, Devil's Bit, to me, Vara, Barrack, Obama Plaza.
No such thing as closing time. Everyone's name is Ryan. Swiss Cottage, Garda Cottage, Galtee Mountains.
Being from Tipperary, we love drinking tea on what's the final day. Being from Tipperary, if you're from Clonmel, then you all say well. Big ball, small ball, Premier County, Tiburon, Holy Cross, Terry Glass, Fail, Latin Turles.
Horse and jockey, Golden Dale, summers out, stacking bales, catching salmon, horse racing, waving at strangers.
Well, kid, I'm from Rossgrey, some header, so they say, pulling hard, drinking tea, Tip is a long way.
James Barry, Gerta Gary, Ronald Reagan.
Oh, I knew you'd appreciate the tune, Shana. We lined up that one up just for you especially. Welcome to Thursday on Our Game, and we have one happy man in the middle of the screen. Shano, it's like what Kieran McGeary said in 2021. They said we couldn't, they said we wouldn't, but Tipp are back.
Hey, Bernie, if only somebody had seen this coming.
It's gas you said, because I know, yeah, you being, having no ego whatsoever, didn't point this out to me or anything like that, but the clip going around of you basically saying that, Cork should be terrified had about, 35k views on X before the match, and it's gone to nearly 200,000 now. You've well and truly sickened us all.
Yeah, honest to God, though, I couldn't understand the confidence in Cork. And I was actually tick listening to you. You were doing the pod with Milan and Eddie Brennan. And I was actually tick listening to you because I was like, he's from Offaly and he's smugly talking. And I know you're not really too smug because you've very little to be smug about. But I was thinking, you're actually smugly saying Cork are going to win here. Perhaps showing off that anti-Tip bias that I've been talking about for about 7 or 8 years.
Well, listen, it was... there was no lesser of two evils on Sunday. And unfortunately, I said it to you. I said it was a doubt and Thomas about Cork. And then I just came to the point of view that, listen, they're going to do it. All signs suggest that they're going to do it. And they flopped again. And we'll get to that. Pat, we'll come to you now in one second, because I know you have Tipperary relations that are dancing all over you, I'd say now. Shano, is this the sweetest one yet?
Do you know, I never thought it could be sweeter than some of the ones, because the rivalry with Kilkenny's been so good, and we took a couple of hefty beatings, at different times over the years. And I never thought it could be sweeter, but honest to God, I didn't stop smiling from about the 50th minute until 5 a.m. When I eventually left Roddy Boland's, where an awful lot of the team were, and they were closed up well before that. We're just drinking water. But it was just, I suppose, the unexpected nature of the season, because before the start of the championship, when we'd be chatting away, I wouldn't exactly have many expectations. Now, there was a little sniff in that Clare game in the league, because I think Tipp came from maybe 7 behind. This was in Thurles, and the crowd started getting behind the team, and I was like, there's something here. There's definitely an improvement on last year. Then the Limerick draw, and you're like, okay. And then even getting hammered by Cork, there was real fight, and there was only 6 or 7 points in it with maybe 8 to go, and they were fighting on their backs. And then that Clare performance, it just took off from there, and from then on, and they kept building the team. Like I was saying last week, they kept building the team, got to the semi-final against Kilkenny. Okay, we can all see this is now the team now. It's a really, really serious team. But to go and cap it off with that, and the second half of just points going over, and I was at the Davin side where all the scores are going in the second half. I'd say I got 75% of the scores in the entire game.
430, I think, scored into the Davin the other day.
It was ridiculous. I just kept roaring, get over or put it up or whatever it might have been. But it was a prodigious collapse from Cork. I mean, yeah. As much as I thought Tipp were going to win, and I thought there would be white line fever for Cork, I mean, nobody thought that was going to happen, did they?
No, we get into that in a minute, because I think Tipp deserved their flowers big time. Pat, it was fair enough, there was a Cork collapse or whatever. Tipp got so much right in this game, didn't they? And at the end of the day, you can throw your tactics whatever way you want. They were only able to, implement those tactics or whatever because they were ravenous. They were everywhere. They were all over Cork. Even in the first half, half-time was probably a bit false, but you still probably thought Cork were going to kick on. But this was champagne stuff from Tipp.
Unbelievable. Look, to an ambush that the great Sean Tracy and Dan Breen be proud of, innit? That's what one of my cousins said to me. He said, you know what I mean? It had a bit of something about it that it was just, I don't know, it's definitely one for the ages. You know, I can only go back so far in terms of Great All-Irelands for Tipp. Like, I never thought, obviously you watched 2010, you know, Shane mentioned it there. You'd never think 2010 could be beaten, you know, to stop your greatest rivals from winning 5 in a row. But there's an awful lot of Tipperary people saying this one is probably even sweeter compared to, you know, seeing where they've come from, not only last year, but realistically the last 3 years. You know, I think they'd won one match in the round robin in the last 3 years. Like, that's just absolutely exceptional. And if anything, it'll actually breathe oxygen into teams that are playing poorly maybe this year, like a Galway or like a Wexford. You know, maybe it's said like, you know, we were maybe ahead of Tipp this time last year. Why can't we do that? But in terms of what they actually brought on the field Sunday, and even what they obviously brought from the training field from 10 days prior, like to turn around, and you asked me, Michael, you know, do I think they'll play a sweeper? I genuinely didn't, because I felt hook, line and sinker for what Liam Cahill said in the media. I don't play sweepers, he said.
Yeah.
I love that, you know what I mean? It's a bit of a rope it up kind of thing, and fair play to him, you know what I mean? He obviously took a lot of inspiration from the likes of Derek McGrath and these things. You know, I think some lads in Tipperary might owe some guys like Derek an apology for the way they've spoke about different systems over the years, because look what Sunday done to them. Now, I completely agree with that you know, you do what needs must and what's necessary. And I love a team and management that will be flexible at different times. You know, they go all out in certain games and then, you know, might be able to change it up for a final like Liam Cahill done. And I think that's exceptional management. But in terms of what just being at the game and what I noticed in the first 10 or 15 minutes, the hits, the contacts, the tackles from the Tipperary players, especially the backs, especially Willie Connors, Owen Connolly. Owen Connolly has a neck like Mike Tyson, like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's going around hitting fella. His neck is wider than his head, you know. And they were just hitting absolutely everything, you know. Ronan Maher not giving Brian Hayes a sniff all throughout the game, even when Cork were kind of going, you know, Cork done all right in the first half. I know Tipp didn't deserve to be 6 behind and whatever, but, you know, even when they were going well and they scored 116 in the first half, Ronan Maher was still well on top there, you know. So just an outright exceptional performance, as exceptional as the Tipp performance was, and we'll come into it, as you said, the second half from Cork is just, you know, incredible in its own story. But yeah, just an amazing performance from Tipp. Only one man saw it coming outside to sit up, and that was Shane. I was saying a while ago, I said, it's like when a fella's blow a corner forward, but he done last week on the show. It's like when a fella is blow on the sideline and you're roaring, don't shoot, and he shoots over his shoulder and it goes over and he turns around and he gives you the finger wag. So Shane can wag the finger now.
Shane, just on that, you were there obviously to Davin, and like, I think it's very simplistic to say that Brian O'Mara played sweeper. He played really in that 7 channel for a hell of a long time, and I'd love to know how they analysed where Cork scores were coming from or where they were going down most. He wasn't necessarily sweeping across. Like, look at all the balls that were hit to him. They were down that channel even. It's amazing how something as simple as that totally stifled Cork. And it was amazing to see even like Rob Downey hit a ball down to him, and you knew like the second he hit it, you're like, there's nobody there, only him. It was crazy to see that they couldn't adapt to that. So now, fair enough, you know, Cattle might have, pulled the wool over our eyes a small bit, but surely you're ready for something like that that's coming and you can react to it on the day and react to it fairly quickly, but they didn't.
Yeah, and you had that brilliant view from the press box, and I have it from directly behind where Brian O'Mara was standing. So at all times, I couldn't see anything without him being framed in the picture. And it wasn't that he was standing left wing back all the time. Like, there was times when he was standing inside the 21 or on the 21, and it was the whole idea was to counteract what Cork had done against Dublin. And obviously the Tipperary management had watched exactly what Cork did, which is overload one side, and Dublin were biting on that and following the whole way across. So like a quarter of the pitch was then totally open. You know, like let's say if they were all over on the left side, the entirety of the right wing forward and the right corner forward position were open. So O'Mara just stood over there. And if Cork were going to do the 1-2 with Patrick Collins and go long and hard, Ronan Maher knew that he could really wrestle Brian Hayes, which he did brilliantly. Like, okay, none of us saw the sweeper coming. And if it was 6-on-6 with the backs, I don't think Ronan would have played on Hayes. I would have thought, that's why I was saying so passionately that I thought Breen was going to go on it. But it was a master stroke when you knew that Ronan could get unbelievably tight on him now, particularly on the high ball, knowing that O'Mara or somebody else was going to get across. So that was a master stroke. But the other thing is, when O'Mara was coming out for a ball, you know, there might have been a contested ball and he came in for the break or was just intercepting someone or whatever. It's just the absolute confidence he has on the ball. Like he'll be running, like at times it looks like he's only running at 3/4 pace and he'll just flick a little hurley and the ball comes up into his hand and whatever. He's just so comfortable on the ball that, you know, sometimes in a match, and we've all done it, you've turned and you've struck a ball up the field and you see that it's going in the general direction of a certain player and you're already have your head in your hands because you just know they're going to punish you, or they're going to do. But you know, I would say that Tipp looked a little bit nervy in the first half themselves. I think if you include the Jason Ford flick to the net, which I do think was a square ball, outside of that, Tipp had it must have been 8 or 9 wides and some really bad ones and shots from the sideline that you wouldn't expect. And you know, Tipp weren't perfect in that first half either.
No.
But there were signs that, look, Tipp are absolutely in this game. And I have to say, when the goal went in just before half time, I was a little bit rocked or whatever. And then when the free went to Cork just after half time, you're kind of wondering, is there writing on the wall a little bit here? But yeah, like there's a few players with Cork that it just did not happen for them. And it didn't happen from last year either. Like Patrick Horgan had a tough day at the office, like one unbelievable point, really tough day at the office. Declan Dalton, the same, second really tough.
Do you know what was really mad? Do you remember the puck out in the first half where Dalton was facing the wrong way? And I was like, what is going on here?
So was Connors. The two of them were facing the wrong way. Yeah. And then he had that spoon shot from around 20, 25 yards out or whatever. And
that was weird. Yeah, that was a strange one. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these Shane fellas you mentioned, it's their third. Well, for like Hoggy, it's his 4. But some of them it's their third final in 4 years. So it's not just a good enough. You know what? Anything can happen in the first final, maybe, or thing on the day. But when it's your third final, I don't know. That's why I'm probably getting into Cork. Like so much really, really hard questions have to be asked about Cork now. And you'd imagine there'll be forcible change now. You'd imagine teams always look at the All-Ireland winners, where to go and what to do. People will look at Liam Cahill now and say, Liam Cahill got here because he was extremely ruthless. You know, so will Cork do the same? They had 14 players that saw games from the other day that between subs and starters that played in the 21 final. You know,
there's a lot of scar tissue there, Pat, isn't there?
A lot of scar tissue there. I think, and it's no coincidence a fella like Dudds Healy played well in the first half. You know, I just think, I no idea. Sure, we don't even know who the manager's going to be. Pat Ryan's term is up. Will he go again or not? But I think myself, I had lost finals at different levels before. And when you get younger players coming through, like we had in the club, we got a fierce influx of younger players from when we lost the 2020 final to last year. And by God, they're a breath of fresh air. You know, they don't carry baggage. They don't carry that scar tissue, as you said. So is that something, will next year be very different for Cork?
Yeah, just on that, Pat, how much does that change your mindset when you have, like, you just say you were used to losing a couple of finals and being close, and Stapleton always gladly said every year, is this finally going to be Doone's year? And then I remember you saying to me last year, Pat, last winter was the one time our game wasn't running through the winter. It was the one time Doone won the county championship as well. But how much does that change your mindset and help you believe more, shall we say, when you see these young fellas coming in with youthful abandon almost and not caring?
Yeah, I think it's a massive boost. It's kind of an intrinsic one that it's not even mentioned sometimes, that it's, you see the confidence, you see the excitement when a semi-final is won, maybe in an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old, and just the sheer buzz that they have when they're into a final, compared to if you like that now, if you've experience of losing maybe a couple of finals, you're very nervous that week. There is no, you know what I mean? It's that you're more nervous after losing a final than you are the first time you played in the final. And I always think with Limerick in 2018, winning that final, if we had lost that final, almost like what people said about Tipp this year, it would have been the free hit, as you want to say, inverted commas. Like, whereas when we won that final, then it just became, sure, this is great. I said it to you, Michael, before, sure, we have, you know, it's great memories and great stuff. So younger fellas coming in, like Dudds Healy the other day, like Shane Barrett wasn't there in 21, or maybe, I don't think he wasn't, and maybe he could have been, but, you know, last year and this year, I thought Shane Barrett, again, one of the younger guys, performing quite well. Is that something they're going to have to look at now? They're going to have to look and see, okay, how can we get 3 more, you know, fearless guys in for next year that don't carry this baggage? But it's a massive help. But, you know, you can't just force it either. They have to be good enough. I suppose, well, Tipperary maybe forced it in some ways. He was, like, Cahill was that ruthless. And you'd have to have fierce admiration for him now. Even from last year's team, I saw teams from last year to this year, the amount of change from the first round. There was fellas that didn't make 26 that saw game time in the first 2-3 games this year for Tipp, and a fella like Willie Connors then didn't see any game time in the first round. Came on very late in the second round. Came on late in the third round. Started the fourth round. So hats off to Tipp for that, and it looks like they have the strongest panel now going forward because obviously you have so many 20s filtering in.
Vernie, can I ask you one? Like, so when Tipp played the sweeper, right, which Cork evidently weren't expecting, like, number one, how many of the Cork full backline are, really confident carrying the ball out? Then I said, and I even did KCLR radio there on Saturday, and I was saying, Rob Downey has not been finishing out games for a long, long time, and I think he's class. Like, I'm a huge, huge fan of him. I think he's a brilliant centre-back. But he didn't finish out the game against Clare. He didn't start the Munster final against Limerick. He came off in, I would have said, fairly visible discomfort against Dublin in the semi-final after an hour, and why didn't they take him off sooner, I suppose you could say at this stage. But to me, it looked like a lot of their players in the back six weren't comfortable bringing the ball out or weren't at 100%.
Yeah, and it was actually confusing to see what Downey was trying to do as free man when he was free man. And they didn't maximise the free man. And it's funny because surely you're talking about every possible scenario and you're thinking, if we have a free man or whatever, who's it going to be? How are we going to maximise that? If they're playing it away from, how do we get him on the ball more? And yeah, they definitely didn't use him. I remember even one coming out there. Do you remember Sean O'Donoghue who got a ball in the first half and he stood up striking it and kind of got half hooked? And I was kind of like they had a free man and they were standing striking even 30 yards out. It was like,
that was a sharp hook out as well. Yeah.
This is not what this is the opposite of what we should be doing. And it's amazing how something as simplistic as what that was. And I have to say, even when you were chatting there, Shane, and you're talking about the Dublin game, Neil O'Callaghan played a bit of a role in this as well. Because I'd say, and even in his interview after, they went straight up against Cork and they got absolutely opened up. And even the way he talked after the game was, you could play more conservative against Cork, but you're going to lose. You lose by less, but you lose by a different way, and you'll be blunted up the other end. And Cattell wasn't hearing any of it. He wasn't hearing any of it.
Cork don't have or Dublin don't have the shooters, though.
Yeah.
And do you know what is interesting? Like, you know the way, like, some teams have a really versatile front six. So, like, you could play anyone in any position. Move them around, like even Grode Hegarty going into full forward at different times. I'm thinking of that game in Ennis last year. He went up and he punished Clare. And the Tipperary team the forward line probably isn't all maybe massively versatile. It is to some degree. Ford has played centre forward before, so has John McGrath. Ormond is probably known more so as a corner forward up until this year. So there's a certain amount of versatility. But with Cork's forward line, you could totally plan for what's coming because you know that Barrett, Healy and Dalton, you know exactly where they're going to play and how they're going to play. You know exactly where Horgan is going to play Connolly and Hayes. Like, you couldn't imagine any of the three of them playing the half forward line. Yeah. So, like, Pat,
they were easier analysed.
There's a few things that fed into them, I think, having the balls to go and play the sweeper as well. They played, even though we didn't realise at the time, they had a full hour against Cork below playing with only 5 forwards. And scored 24 points below the park. They had 12 or 13 or 14 minutes with 5 forwards against Kilkenny in the semi-final when when the sending off occurred, and then they outscored Kilkenny in that time as well. So I think the both. Are
you saying this was all a master plan? Darren McCarthy gets sent off twice, and it's all with the All Ireland bigger picture in mind.
No, but I think they look back at it when the management probably met in a room and they said, "Look, can we actually do this? Can we afford to play a way we've never played before? Will we get, like, the thing with sweepers is, will we always be able to score enough when we go with a 7th defender?" And I think they probably sat down and probably said, "But you know what? We scored 24 points below in the park with 14 players, and we created about 3 very good goal chances with just 14 players, 5 forwards, and we outscored Kilkenny for the last 15 minutes with 5 forwards as well." I think because it was O'Donoghue's goal, it was like 1-3 to 3 points or 1-4 to 4 points. So I think stuff like that happened, inconsequently, just kind of basically fed into that narrative. And again, if we know, like, if Darren McCarthy never got sent off, it's what happens for a reason and whatnot. If they had played well against Cork that day and lost by 4 points or 5 points, would they have played a sweeper then above the weekend? Probably not. They probably said we have enough. So it's amazing what can happen.
Do you know another point, Michael, I wanted to make was about the goalkeepers. So Rhys Shelley saved the penalty from Conor Lahan, and the ball broke, and he rose it. He went, collected it, and then I don't remember if it was Connolly or Hayes, but he was looking for the contact. He was happy for the contact. He took it and then just popped it out to whoever. Whereas
he belted it into the Hogan stand, did he not? I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But he took the contact, and you can see he was. And even if you go back to the game in Ennis, there was one time when Peter Duggan got somewhat free around somewhere in the middle of the D, or maybe inside the 21, and he came out and met him and turned him back the other way. Like, he's a big man, obviously, so it's a bit easier. But Patrick Collins is a brilliant ball-playing goalie, and he's produced some great performances. But that I think he's a bit unfortunate with the one where John McGrath knocked it in the first time. Little unfortunate. Maybe he was just so desperate to keep it out, and it was just a poor touch, or it was just a tough one. But the one where John McGrath was able to flick the ball into the net, you can't stand underneath waiting for the ball when you see that danger. Number one, Sean O'Donoghue probably needs to do a better job of holding the man out, but Collins has to come out, take man ball the whole lot, and John McGrath needs to be carted off to hospital. That type of aggression, you're coming out, or you're roaring so that the forwards is I'm getting out of here.
That's the German goalkeeper. That's the German goalkeeper Schumacher job, isn't it? There, like the chances there. Like, I'm not being smart. Like, if McGrath gets absolutely upended, ball's there, he takes man and ball, shin A, like, and do you know what as well? If he comes more forcefully, don't tell me that John McGrath's eye isn't ever so slightly taken off the ball. 100% it is, and you don't get that flick like you did. But listen, just on John McGrath, like, let's call a spade a spade. Like, several people were probably writing his epitaph at county level. What did he finish with? 7 championship goals and like huge performances and huge goals in the biggest games that Tipp played this year. The 2 against Limerick when Tipp were coming in, under pressure from the league final. The Clare game was a season-defining game. The semi-final, they needed a goal. The way they were playing long ball in. The other day, he scores 2, wins a penalty. Like, my God above, what a season for a man that, a lot of people, inside and outside of Tipperary had written off.
Yeah, and like Pat obviously played with him in UL, so he can speak to it more as well. But I think back over the number of years there, after even in 2019, his form wasn't particularly good. Got sent off in the final, semi-final against Wexford, and then had a brilliant final out centre forward. Then the next number of years, it just kind of hasn't happened for him, and you were almost waiting for him to be left out of the county panel. So number one,
that was the talk, Shane, over the winter as well. Like, that was the big talk that McGrath had been cut loose.
So fair play to him for persevering, because obviously at some level he has that belief that he can get back to the way he was, and also to Liam Cahill for, saying, I'm going to stick with this man. And what's interesting, like, and you'd see it around in the different pubs after the game the other day and before the game the other day. You walk around the pub and you see some players who've been cut from the panel in the last while, or even within the stadium, you see lads who maybe started in a couple of games in Munster and then they're outside the 26, and you think, geez, that is so harsh. And it's the team could have still got there with them in it, so it's a little unfortunate. It's not like there's only 126 that you could have picked that could have possibly done it this year, so it's a bit harsh on some lads, and you feel for them on some level. But like, fair play to John McGrath, because I didn't see it coming. I honestly did not see it coming. We all knew he had the hands, the hurling cuteness, all that kind of stuff, but when he just put that first goal against Limerick, the one where he sort of stepped one way and passed it into the back of the net, you're like, okay, there's a sniff of it. And then the way he finished the second goal, and that got Tipp rolling. There'd have been no All-Ireland without John McGrath this year.
Yeah, and just on the impact, like, as well, like, an Achilles injury, like, for track and field athletes, Achilles injuries, that's it. You basically lose that hop, you lose that spring. Probably took him a couple of years to get back to, like, this is the best season he's ever had for Tipp, and he's right in the hurler of the year conversation, you'd have to say. Just on him, like, and just the big moments, big goals, big plays.
Yeah, absolutely huge. It's his 10th year with Tipp. 2016 was his debut when he won an All-Star, and he's going to win another All-Star now, his second All-Star 10 years later, and he have an awful lot done in between as well, between club and county. And like, it is amazing, really, when management make decisions on certain players, because I know he had injuries, but Cahill didn't really fancy him the last 2 years. Like, I remember against Galway in the Gaelic Grounds 2 years ago when they got out of Munster and Galway knocked him out. He came on for like the last 60 seconds. And at the time, obviously, because I have a bit of a bias, because I played against Sean Upalong and I played him in college, so I know how good he is, maybe even when he's not playing that well. And I remember him coming out of there, and I was like, why are they only bringing him on for 60 seconds? Would you not just, like, over time, he's such class, like, Cream always rises to the top. He'll do well. Now, I didn't see at all what was coming this year, because that was even 2 years ago. And of course, look, when he got time then this year, he just, he was John of old. But as you're saying there, he probably was in danger of being cut because he saw such little time the last 2 years. What kept him on it, I think, I don't know about G, was his club form. Winning county titles with his club. They won the county title last year. I was at one or two of their games, and he was absolutely outstanding. There was a couple of years ago when they won the double, he got man of the match. I actually thought he should have been nominated for Sports Personality of the Year the same year. He got man of the match in hurling and football, quarter-final, semi-final, and final. That, to me, is just, how is that possible? Like 6 games, across 2 codes. So, a very special man, a very unique player. Even some of the scores he got the other day, that tap into the net, lads, that is so difficult and so hard to do, as some people mightn't realize it. That is just an incredible skill. Obviously, he's like Messi then when he, almost fakes a shot for the goal. And what I love about him and sums him up, he'd no score at halftime. I was texting one of my friends who'd be chatting about hurling and stuff. I won't say who it is now because he'd be embarrassed. But
John Guiley.
No. But he's a big hurling man, this man. He texts me at halftime. He says, John McGrath's going to have to come out. He says, because he'd no score. But look what happened in it. Almost sums up the last 2 years. And comes out and scores 8 points in the second half when they were 6 down at halftime, and wins the penalty as well. So what a player.
So anyway, just chat about a couple of the other heroes. Like Willie Connors, lads. Willie Connors had some game. My God, he was everywhere, and he'd all those big like oxygen filler moments, like moments where you get a flick or you get a hook or you win a free. Even the point you were chatting about earlier, Shane, Horgan put over that lovely point from play. Willie Connors runs about 70 yards for the next puck out. Shelley puts it into his mouth and he puts it over. And he doesn't put it over. He stayed running, and then I was like, what are you doing striking it off the hurl? Like, he struck it off the hurl even about 30 yards out. Then he, bangs back down the field or whatever. That was the game of his life. And no one would have predicted it, particularly at wing back. Like, who would have thought Willie Connors would be? To me, he was man of the match. Don't care what anyone else says. He was man of the match. He was unbelievable.
Now, while I wouldn't have predicted he'd give that performance that day, we have seen that he's a very, very good player. And I don't know who it was that did a video recently, one of the Tipp players. It could have been John McGrath. Maybe I'm wrong. But they were asked who is the best wrists on the Tipperary panel. And Willie Connors.
Noel said that, yeah.
Was it Noel? Okay, yeah. And we've seen him play in a variety of positions for Killidangan. We've seen him play, like, obviously midfield, half forward line. Seen him drop into the half back line before and play a sweeper role. Like when he went sweeper the other day after Brian O'Mara went off, like he just punishes you so much when he gets on the ball. And what I love as well is when he's under pressure, and it happened a couple of times where he got bottled up maybe at the sideline, or maybe Cork had a bit of a press on up the front end of the pitch. He gets the ball and he'll sort of dive through the air and do a one-handed flick straight back to someone. He always releases the pressure. Do you remember against Kilkenny, he was coming out with the ball at one stage and he turned back the other way, hopped it off the ground and just gave it back to the goalie. He's just real coolness under pressure. And like we all know that the best teams out there, a lot of the time now, they're just pressing hard up front, pressing you really, really high. If you have people who can break the press, like all the best soccer teams or what Brighton were doing for a few years there under De Zerbi and maybe after that, when you can break the press, what a killer it is for the opposition. Like he faced that in Limerick a lot, but you're so good at getting out of the press because you're just so accurate. And what does the opposition do then, Pat? Once you get out past the 65, they're just chasing their tail.
And I will say, Bernie, I know we're going through it later about different things into the year, things I know you said to me about, most improved player of the year. I think that would have to go to Willie Connors. Even, the league final, he was whipped up after 23 minutes. Then he felt the brunt of it in for the first round, didn't get a run, came on late in the second round, came on late in the third round, and then got in for against Waterford in the fourth round. And look where he's went since then. And I don't know Willie personally now. I know one or two lads in Killidangan that I played with in New York, and they were telling me that even the week he did the Kenny match, he had a bereavement in his family, and an uncle of his had passed, and even when you take that into consideration, and then to go out and play that well for the coming 2 weeks, it's just, again, for a guy who was routinely since 2018, like he was dropped in 2023, he wasn't dropped in 2022, he broke his ankle, a year outside the panel. So like what a roller coaster ride to where he got to the other day. And obviously an awful lot of people even in Tipperary wouldn't have seen this coming from. So fair play to him. And as you said, Mike, what a huge part of the game the other day, and what a huge part of him winning the All-Ireland.
Yeah, just last one, Shane, on Darren McCarthy. 15 shots a goal, 113, 19 years of age. A couple of the scores he got, even when, when things weren't going, to say, particularly well, like he got some key scores just to keep the whole thing ticking over, because a game could get away from you easily, especially when you're playing with an extra man at the back and one short up top. Every free meant more. Every shot meant more. And like, he hardly put a foot wrong. And even, lads, his first touch for that ball that flew out of defence at the end, the first touch straight to hand, ball over to Noel McGrath. Like, the first touch was ridiculous. The ball was flying at me. I'd love to know the speed the ball was flying at me. Just threw the hurl out, bang. Even the one off his right when it was a goal chance and then it wasn't a goal chance and he didn't try and force it. Like, that was brilliant.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, we've seen it coming that this lad's a quality player, but before this match, he'd scored 1-5 from playing the entire championship. And then he goes out and knocks 4. Like, even for the under-20s, Paddy McCormick and Oisin O'Donoghue were the ones doing the vast majority of the scoring in that full forward line. So to come out and score 4 points, given the season he'd had, probably all the commentary in the previous 2 weeks because of the red card, that he still has the resolve and the composure to go out and do that is something else. But just before I go, Vernie, I just do want to point out one last thing in terms of Cork. Look at the victories they've had in the championship this year. They beat Waterford and who else? They beat a 14-man Tipp, and in normal time they beat Dublin. That's who they actually beat this year. So you hate penalties more than anyone, so you probably don't even count it as a win. So that'll tell you they collapsed by 12 points. They collapsed by, from 12 points ahead to drawing against Clare. They lost by 16 points in Limerick, and they go out and did this. Like, the writing was on the. They need to change things massively, and they need to be unemotional about it and start handing out a few pink slips here, because you can't keep doing the same thing.
Just on that, and let's call a spade, and I've said it elsewhere already. Do you think Ben O'Connor will be manager in 2026? And do you expect the house to be cleared?
It's funny, like the two O'Connor twins were in McGrath's in Drumcondra afterwards. I think the father stopped him up and said, "You'll be well." I don't know if he picked the right lad out, but he just basically said, "You'll be over the team next year," or whatever. I don't know. I mean, Pat Ryan is such a gent. Not this one. The other Pat Ryan. He's such a gent. I know, to be fair, you're both gents. No, he's such a gent that I'd love to see him give it another go. But I mean, he has to be a bit more ruthless. He definitely has to be. Like, even look at Noel McGrath this year. He came on, and his legend grows because he accepted the substitute role, came on and did brilliantly. Like, you need to be far more ruthless. You need to identify what's costing us here, because if I'm seeing it, he needs to be seeing it coming into the final. And that's not to say I'm Nostradamus, but there was just some things that were so glaringly obvious that the manager of the team. And if you're not willing to be ruthless, then I think you have to let the next person in.
Jano, I actually thought you would have been worse in the aftermath of the final, but I made a conscious decision around 7 or 8 o'clock the night of the match. I just said, listen, I'm going to put a tweet out here. I'm just going to put it out there. This man knows more than I do. And in fairness, then you were kind of easy on me for the rest of the week. So I kind of know the strategy now. I know. You
took the good out of it.
Yeah. Because after the semi-final, you were the most sickening yoke. I could not bear you for about 5 days after. And like, you send a message and I wouldn't respond, like, because you'd be busy or something. And then you'd be like, another message an hour and a half later. It's like, but go and enjoy the success. It's going to be a nice winter for you. Enjoy, my friend.
Sure. Well, lads, great chatting to you.
Come on, Shane. Take her, Andy. Pat, any other bits and pieces from the game? Like, on the second half, Limerick were involved in one of the best halves of hurling I would have ever said in an All-Ireland final in 2021. I think it was 318 to 111. Kilkenny in the first half against Waterford in 08 was 216 to 1-5. But 314 to 2 points. You can say Cork fed into it. But from a Tipp point of view, like, this was one of the most perfect halves of hurling you could ever put together on the biggest occasion.
And as you described there, I would say when you went through the Kilkenny one and Limerick one, the Tipp one is a high score, and as you'd expect, because you're describing a great half. But even the opposition would say Cork in 21 and Waterford in 2008. 2 points in 39 minutes is just, I have no idea how it happened. I don't know, do you? Like, how do that Cork team score 2 points in 39 minutes? I have absolutely no rhyme or reason for it. I still don't know how it happened or how it makes any sense. It's just, it's mind-boggling. It's amazing how quick, how small the details can go from, as Shane said there, there might have to be big changes now and there might have to be pink slips handed out. They were Munster and league champions, which, no mean feat. They hadn't won a league since 98, they hadn't won a Munster in a good few years. They had lost to Ireland last year, and I suppose they'd done everything right up to the half time. But to be 6 points up and to come out and only score 2 points, again, I have no idea how it happened. I know we're going through different things for the year now. You had put me down mystery of the year, you'd asked me. And I don't know if yours is the same. It could be the same, I don't know. But mine is, I just wrote down second half. Cork the Ireland. No, it doesn't take away from how great Tipp were. They were absolutely awesome. But Jesus Christ, 2 points in 39 minutes for that, for the caliber of players to have. It's just, it's actually frightening.
Just going through a couple their second half here, what I had written down anyway for scoring chances or wides, etc. I think Horgan's free that went to Hawkeye was big, because all of a sudden the psychology for Tipp is we should have been 3 down, maybe we should have been closer at half time, and all of a sudden now a minute into the second half we're 7 down, and Healy drops one short not long after. 11 Barrett hits the post, Fitzgibbon hits the post, Hardy hits a wide, Brian Hayes hits a wide, Alan Conley hits a wide, Darragh Fitzgibbon has a Hawkeye wide. Mark Coleman has a free, I think, that hits off the post, and Seamus Hardy hits the crossbar with a shot. Like, my God, like, it's actually mad to think that they didn't try something to stop it. I know you're not going to give away the secrets of Fatima, but Nicky and his contact lens and this kind of crack, but something to stop the rot, because it just if that happened in a junior game and a team got a run on you like that, you'd be pulling your hair out. But for that to happen in an All-Ireland final and for no one to step up or no one to take the bull by the horns, it's bewildering, really. Yeah,
and an awful lot of players in that team now, their stock has went down an awful lot. Like, in fairness to Barrett got 1-4, and he's I know he got one of the points in the second half. One of them was actually straight after John McGrath's goal. He got on the break of the puck out on his left side and he put over the bar. So I think Barrett is top class. I think he's a serious player. I think Healy's a very good player. He had to come off when the red card happened, unfortunately. I thought Harnedy showed well when he came on.
He did.
Usually, Harnedy's been one of the best players in the country for the last 12 years, without a shadow of a doubt. And why he was missed so much, I think, is because he's by far and away, if not the only Cork forward who can consistently win primary possession in the air from a puck up. He's so he is just a huge loss. And he, in fairness to him, he nearly scored a cracking goal in the second half. They were probably a bit, but other guys, you can't, like Darragh Fitzgibbon is a talisman in Cork, and he's great player when they're on top and different things. But for him to miss the chances he missed, in the second half, it's just serious question marks. And obviously, and all the other inside forwards and stuff, and they'll be the first ones to realise that, as great as Hayes and Connolly were all year, like that, just, I don't even like to say it, but they went missing when they were needed most. Yeah. So we'll see next year, will that drive man? Will it have such an effect? It drove man last year when they lost by a point. I think that was quite obvious that they got a lot better this year for a good periods of the year. But now this could be so damning that it could have a negative effect. And they could be way off it next year. Look, we won't know till then, but it's definitely, you wouldn't be backing them anyway to win it next year, because there's just so many unanswered questions until they get over the line.
What do you make of all these WhatsApps flying around and all this kind of crack? It's amazing. God only knows what did or didn't happen. Chances are the truth is somewhere in the middle, maybe, or maybe even it could be veering towards the very shallow end of anything actually happening. But all that kind of stuff always comes out in the aftermath when something like this happens. Yeah, look, again, I have no idea what happened or didn't happen. I've heard a lot of these things. Myself personally, I've been in dressing rooms for the last 20 years. I've never seen a row in a dressing room at halftime when I was 6 points up in my life. Yeah. So I can't imagine there was a row at halftime. Whatever about a row after the match. I have seen, there's rumours that fellas went home after the match, didn't go on the team bus or they left the hotel. I have seen that before. I have seen players. I have seen a player leave after a match and not travel with a team. So that can happen. And look, as you said, maybe somewhere in the middle lies a bit of truth. Maybe something happened after the game with disagreements. I couldn't see anything happening at halftime. I just, they were 6 points up. If they were 6 points down, I'd say fair enough. But I don't know where these rows would have come from at halftime, because they were in an absolute great position at halftime. There's no one in the country would have said at halftime they were in a bad position. I thought when that goal went in, I thought to myself, okay, this, even as well as Tipp have played, I think this is it now. I think, Cork got that goal against the run of play, and now they'll come out and, they'll kind of take over here, but couldn't have been more wrong. Yeah. Pat, we'll fly through a couple of the awards for the end of the year. This is all just based on the county season and what we've seen so far. Who are your top three for hurler of the year?
My top three for hurler of the year are probably everyone's top three for hurler of the year in John McGrath, Jake Morris, Ronan Maher. What about yourself?
Have you John number one?
This took an awful lot of deliberation the last while. I had Jake number one up to the final, and I had him number one for the day after the final. I think he's been absolutely exceptional, even when they were going bad, we'll say, against Cork and all these different things. But individual award goes for maybe, as you went through with John, you already called through all the most important games of the year. Clare was a knockout game, Limerick, semi-final, final. I can't ignore what he produced in that, and my hurler of the year would be John McGrath.
And even like I'm kind of thinking him for when I'm looking at the All-Stars, the only thing that would stop me picking Hugh Lawler at fullback would be the fact that he had a tough time on John McGrath.
I've seen him on all the teams. I think Hugh Lawler overall is probably the best fullback in the country, but to me, Ronan Maher was the best fullback in the country this year. I know he was wearing 6, but he played 6 for the first 2 rounds, and after that, he's played the majority of the last 5 games in a fullback. And to me, Ronan Maher is fullback now, unless they put one of them at 3 and 4. Or I know the Sunday game team had Ronan at 6, but Ronan done all his best hurler this year, and he's hurler of the year form at fullback.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting there. But yeah, like I'm probably starting to lean towards John McGrath as well, just for the amount of big plays, big scores. It's hard to get away from it. And I would have had Jake as definitely the front runner from a Tipp point of view going into the final. I think some people that are, I think leaning towards Ronan Maher for hurler of the year now, I think is a bit much based on Sunday. I don't think he was. I don't think he was really in that conversation before Sunday, and he was very good on Sunday. But he still wouldn't have been my man of the match on Sunday now. So I don't think he deserves. I don't think he's going to be hurler of the year. I think he'd be probably third on the shortlist, and I do think it will be between Jake Morris and John McGrath.
There's a lot of people have made good cases for him though as well. That he shut down a lot of big, Peter Duggan, Mikey Kiley, TJ Reid, Brian Hayes.
Yeah,
I didn't have time to, and people have made. I've seen 1 or 2 things. I met Larry Corbett out to Sunday night, and he said there only has to be one hurler of the year, and that's Ronan Maher, and he wouldn't even hear a discussion of it. He wouldn't entertain anyone else.
That's a loaded answer now, anyway. To be fair, that's always going to be a loaded answer.
It's the first time in a good few years, Michael. I think that there is a genuine any of the 3 could get it.
Yeah, it's great.
Which is a good thing, and it's probably the same for young hurler of the year.
Imagine if you'd said going into the final that there wouldn't be a Cork man nominated for hurler of the year. It's crazy. It's just you talk about stock falling, like the Nasdaq or the Dow Jones or whatever. They're on the floor at the minute, literally on the floor. Young hurler of the year. Obviously, I'm actually going to say it's obvious enough. It might be obvious based on your geography, but I'd say you might have a different answer than most people.
Well, we'll go with our 3 first, and I have Robert Doyle, Darren McCarthy, and Adam English. And look, you're going to accuse me of being biased to club and county here. But again, at the end of the day, like the team awards, Tipperary are the best team in the country, without a shadow of a doubt this year. No one can come close to have that. Individual awards are different. There are who of an individual played the best hurling. And I think out of those 3 on a consistent basis, I think Adam English produced the best hurling. Like fellas that say, he got knocked up in the quarter final. Joe Canning won it for 1 game in 2018. Now he actually played 2 games, had Antrim before, but he won it for the Cork game, and he got an All-Star as well. And I think Adam, he's been on the panel a while, but his first start in the championship was against Tipp this year. 1-2 against Tipp, 2 points against Waterford, 2 or 3 points against Waterford, 1-2 against Cork, 3 points in the Munster final. I thought in both games against Cork, he outshone the 2 Cork midfielders, outscored them in both games. 5 points in play against Dublin, kept us in it when the rest of the team were going bad. And this is a guy who's started his first game this year. And for me, I'd be giving it to Adam English. I think I'd have Robert Doyle second. I thought he was absolutely unreal. And if any of the 2 other Tippheads get it, I don't think there'd be much complaints either. But for me, if I had a vote, it'd be Adam English.
Can I say something to you? And Adam English had a brilliant season. I think, and this is just my own opinion, but I think the balance of the Limerick team was a bit off with him playing in midfield. I think potentially that they should have played him inside and coming out. I think the balance was off in midfield defensively, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can understand completely where you're coming from. The last 3 games we played, Conor Burke was midfield against Dublin. He got man of the match. Derek Skibbon, even though I don't think he should have got man of the match in the Munster final. And Ryan Taylor, midfield, got man of the match against Clare. Now, Adam didn't start that day, but so there's definitely an issue there with midfield in terms of defensively. And again, now middle eight, that's responsibility from everyone. That's responsibility from the half forward as well, fellas attacking from behind. So look, I wouldn't disagree with you either. And Limerick are going to make changes next year to how they set up and how they play. The good thing with Adam is Adam can play in the full forward line. Adam can play, he could play a Shane Barrett type role at 11. He could play at 15. He could play.
They were kind of playing him as a 7 forward, though, weren't they?
Yeah, well, he's very attack minded because he would have played in the forwards all his life going up. He only played midfield really only very recently in the last couple of years. So he's very forward minded, very forward thinking. His first instinct is to go and to break forward. And because I wouldn't blame him, he's exceptional at it, especially when he gets on the shoulder. He really is. That's when he gets a lot of his scores. So look, I wouldn't disagree with you either, and it doesn't take away from how good he was this year. I think, in terms of what he displayed. But I think next year, if they are looking at bringing more pace into the half forward line and more of a goal threat into the full forward line, they could definitely use Adam in one of those positions. Now maybe they leave him in midfield. Who knows? Only Limerick management know that. But I wouldn't disagree with you. I think there's definitely scope for improvement there from a team point of view. But who would you give young hurler there?
I'd give it to Robert Doyle.
Cornerback.
Well, he's a bit more stylish than I ever was. But by Jays is I thought it was brilliant the other day. In the second half, there was 2 yellows thrown out to Connolly and to Doyle. And Doyle, it was a tip puck out. And Doyle goes making this 100-yard run, and he keeps getting impeded by Connolly. And I thought it was so smart as well. It was a cornerback almost trying to get another yellow for a corner forward. And it was so clever. I think he ended up with the shot. I could be wrong. I think he's
a very intelligent player, isn't he? He's a very intelligent
smart player. Yeah, he's very smart. And I have to say now, I have a lot of sympathy for Cottle Barrett not being involved the other day, and I can't imagine what that's like. I'd say it's very difficult. But they obviously knew that they had not a like for like, but similar kind of abrasive style of player that can get forward, a player that delivers well, got forward to get a great score. I thought he was outstanding, and the course of the year completely changed. And the biggest controversy, one of the biggest controversies in the history of the J, was avoided by his block in the semi-final. It had beaten Reece Shelley, and he's there, 22-year-old rookie season, stand on the line, blocks it out. So it would be Robert Doyle for me. But it's great. Lots of live candidates in those 2 categories, which you maybe wouldn't have said before.
Yeah. Again, any of the 3 could get it again. I could see any of the 3 getting it.
What's your goal of the year?
My goal of the year is, without a doubt, I know the one that's without a doubt, but there's a couple of other. The 2, John Heatherton got 3 unbelievable goals this year. He got 2 against Wexford, which were class. Remember the second one, Dara Power done that underhand. Pass. It was absolutely class. John McGrath's second goal against Limerick, from a team goal perspective, where they worked the ball the one way to hold it along, was a great goal. Loads of others, but to me, there's one head and shoulders above the rest, and that's Oisín O'Donoghue against Kilkenny. That was just an outrageous goal. And that won him the game. He won the All-Ireland semi-final with that goal. So I don't know. Do you have the same one, or do you have a different one?
No, you've kind of taken my couple there. Hedgerows one against Sheehy was savage. Now.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to mention that one as well. Yeah.
There was literally no angle. He's standing a yard out from the end line, and he beats Nicky Quaid, and he would have beaten anyone. There could have been 5 lads on the line, and it wouldn't matter because the power and pace.
It was a sexy finish. The way he struck the ball, even the way he turned.
Yeah,
and the risks he gave it was just, and like that. That was his 3rd one of those this year where he turned onto the left. Now the angle for the Limerick one was unbelievable, but yeah, I'd have to go with Oisín O'Donoghue. That'll
do. Game of the year.
Game of the year. There was again going back to there was a couple. Like the first round of the weekend was probably one of the best rounds of the year, where both favourites didn't win. Limerick were big favourites to beat Tipp, and Cork were big favourites to beat Clare. And 2 draws, they were very good games. The Wexford and Dublin game, I know Leinster doesn't get as much credit and stuff. Maybe people didn't see. I watched that game and I thought it was just an outrageous good game. Obviously, that Ireland final, it's funny one to pick, when there's a big margin, but it was such an unexpected result. It was a great game. I go back to Tipp and Clare. It was the first knockout game of the year. This is my game of the year. Now Tipp went 12 points up, but it was brought back, and there's nothing like when the team comes back All Ireland champions were coming back. Shane O'Donnell comes on, catches that ball, that brings it back to a point. I said then straight away, I was like, Clare at home, full house in that cauldron they have. They're so hard to beat on there. I said, Clare probably win this now, and maybe, but no, Tipp won that game. And I've heard it referenced. Liam Cad referenced it on the Sunday game the other night, how that was such a turning point. I met a big Tipperary supporter, Jim Mackey, who owns Mackey's Pub beside Semple Stadium, up in Dublin after the semi-final, and he turns to me and he said, I have us at 14-1 to win All Ireland. He goes, when we bet Clare blow that day, he said, I just saw something in the team. He said, and they were still 14-1 after that result. So he's after picking up a nice one there. So that would be my game of the year. What about you?
Yeah, just on that, like, when you look back, didn't they have some amount of character building results? Even the Limerick result after the Cork blowout in the league final, going down to Ennis, and the game been pulled back, and Clare had only done that a couple of weeks previous against Cork as well, and you're kind of thinking this is only going one way. The Kilkenny game, you know what I mean? Even half time of the All Ireland final. Holy Christ, there's never been more character building, displays or results throughout the season.
They had the white flag for 13 minutes. Like you're thinking, geez, they're in serious bother here.
Yeah, listen, we probably should have seen that. Maybe we should have seen the writing on the wall. The only man that saw the writing on the wall outside of the panel is the man that's just gone. I was driving. We were going out to a function down in Athlone when Dublin beat Limerick, and my God, I know it's not a great game for you. Holy Christ, that was unbelievable. Completely unpredicted. No one had that. To go down to 14 men, it was a display of pure defiance, and it was probably Limerick fed into that a bit, but to me that was the game of the year, because that totally ripped up the predictions that almost everybody had for the season ahead. And Tipp would have probably thought if they were getting to the latter stages that they were going to have to meet Limerick again, and they didn't, and someone else had taken them out, and that almost
if Limerick won Tipp are playing Cork in the semi-final.
Yes. Yeah.
So they were probably, and then next thing they got to play Kilkenny, which again, like you said, great reference point. They got a great win over Kilkenny. Who knows what would have happened other ways around? But yeah, that was some game. Biggest shock I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, it was crazy. That's my one anyway. Most underrated player. I'll lead this one off. I can't believe he's not been talked about more as an all-star defender, and he's been around the block a long time. And in fairness to Shane, he campaigned for him to go back into the defence years ago. But Mikey Breen does not get the credit he deserves. He was under pressure a little bit at different stages in the first half the other day. By 15, 20 minutes into the second half, he had broken Patrick Horgan. He had broken him. And he'd broken the Cork spirit as well. And he'd broken the Cork support. And he came out, walked out with a couple of great balls. And even in the semi-final, when they were down a man and they needed someone to put the chest out even and take a short ball, and he was just willing to take it on and bring it out. So it sounds mad to say it, but I still think he's underrated. I think he's an all-star cornerback, and I'll definitely be campaigning for him to be in at number 4. How about you?
Yeah, look, I went through already why I given that award, would say, to Willie Connors for what he done. But I completely see what you're saying about Mikey Breen. I played against Mikey Breen with St. Minor and under 21 when he was fullback. Like, we played under 21 was straight knockout then. So, and you're talking about team of the years. We played Tipp in the first round and they got knocked out, obviously, because we won by a point. Mikey Breen got on team of the year with one game.
Right,
and do you know what the funny thing was? He was sent off. He was sent off with about 30 seconds to go. But that's how good he was fullback. And I always wondered for years why he wasn't moved back sooner. Now, that's because when he first came onto the team, in 2016, he exploded onto the team as a midfielder. He was getting goals galore, and he barely missed out on a midfield All-Star in 2016. So yeah, it's a great shout out to you. He's been back there maybe a year or two now, or was it just after his first year? But this year he showed that form that everyone knew that watched him underage.
Was it not one of Cattle's first moves? No.
Maybe, yeah, 22. Maybe. Or sorry, 2 years ago. Yeah, 23. Yeah, 23. Yeah.
So, yeah.
He was outstanding.
We'll fly through a couple of these ones because you've been very good with your time. Flop of the year. Your near neighbours, I think, would be very close for that, I'd say.
In Clare?
Yeah.
I thought about this. I had Clare down originally, but then I thought to myself, you're kind of contradicting myself here because they were getting the shit bet out of them in 2 games, but they still they came back from 12 points down against Clare. They didn't flop either. Or sorry, against Cork in the first round. Tipp, I thought they were in game of the year. Okay, they would say they were disappointing against Waterford, but I thought Waterford were just very good that day. And then they beat Limerick. I think with that result at the end, they've probably not gotten flop of the year. I'd probably go with flop of the year to Galway, just because some of their performances were so so soft. And like, I thought the game against Tipp was going to be pulsating, great game, go to the wire, and the game was like a challenge match. Nothing to do with Tipp. Tipp turned up and performed how they needed to, and Galway were they were like a team that couldn't wait for the match to be over. They were like a team that couldn't wait for the year to be over. And they have plenty of hurlers, so I go with Galway for that.
Okay, no, you've made a good case.
What about you?
You kind of made a counter argument to my Clare point, but they were All Ireland league champions going into the year, and they didn't get out of Munster. Listen, as Milan said to me the other day, Tipperary are All Ireland champions, and it's 50-50 whether they go out of Munster next year. That's the nature of the way it is at the minute. Do you know what I mean?
It's 50-50 for Cork and Limerick too, I think. And Clare, the 4 team, one of the best 4 teams in Ireland is not going to get out of Munster next year. Yeah,
as somebody said about Cork, like they've been beaten in All Ireland final by 3 other Munster counties as well now, which is mad. Yeah. Controversy of the year, I'll put in that straight away. That's that Noel McGrath score against Kilkenny, and the GA not making any public statement thereafter. I believe something has been sent to Kilkenny privately. How do you just sweep something like that under the carpet? It fundamentally changed. I get this, like, this is me being a Kilkenny sympathiser just by the fact that I bring this up. People go absolutely bonkers on Twitter or whatever, X or whatever it's called now. I would say it's merely a journalist doing his job. I just cannot get over how they don't take the bull by the horns of these things and just say, yeah, we made a mistake. This is how it happened. Like, I don't know about you, Pat, but usually people are quite forgiving when you hold your hands up when you have made a mistake. But just disappear behind the trees and think that people are going to forget about it. I'm not going to forget about it. I'm going to keep going on about it until they do make something public. And I could be waiting 5 years. But the same thing happened with the Glen and Kilmacud. They kicked the can to Kilmacud or Glen to make an appeal rather than
that was a worse one even. That was a terrible one. Email in the field.
Yeah, just do the honest thing, and like, just take the bull by the horns and make a decision. But I think they're so caught up in red tape, and that's not how we do things, or that's not protocol, or that's not in the regulations. Or just do whatever the right thing is at that given time. And if it's a mistake and someone was wrong, admit how it happened, and try to make sure it doesn't happen again. You know what I mean?
I'd agree with you on that one. And one I had second was the penalty. That wasn't the penalty that Dublin were given a goal for. Yeah. Just in height, I met Leach in last week, and I was talking to him, and it was kind of the feeling was, like the Wexford were 3 points up at the time. Dublin get given a goal. That wasn't a goal. It was clearly not over the line. Yeah. Who knows? Now, I'm not saying Wexford would have bet Limerick, but who knows? You'd always be wondering then, like, would we have finished third where Dublin finished if they had not got that goal and we had pushed on? It's kind of a big what if, but I agree with you on your one.
How did you go with Minor last week after? We got great feedback. We got great feedback to last week's show. The whole place must have watched it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had a lot of people talking to me about it. Even up in Dublin the other day about John. John is a great character, in fairness, and a super character. And I think you taught me he's gone to San Francisco since, is he?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
he's gone to ground. Yeah,
but
I feel for him.
Yeah, buddy of mine had to comment up on X there straight away after, but with the photo up, was it taken in San Fran or whatever? It's gas, like, and we should have said it to him at the time. Obviously, his son David went over to England very early, obviously, as well, to seek a career out there. So
I should have told him he should have stepped him across City. Hey, don't be going over to the foreign place.
There you go. It could have ended up in white collar boxing, Pat. I think is the way forward. I think you're looking at 50,000 minimum there. I no problem getting people to pay for that. Last one, Pat. We go with save of the year.
Save of the year. I think you might have the same one because you kind of mentioned it. Robert Ive versus Kilkenny. I'm not giving save of the year to a goalie, however mad that is, but that was a save. It was sure if he didn't do that, similar to Nicky Quaid in 18 that flicks the ball away from Harnedy.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't have been in the final if that ball goes into the net. Or Kilkenny in the final. Again, the glory of this sport is who knows. And Robert Ive what a moment for him to have. You know, he saved his team on the biggest stage in the last second. It's forwards grow up dreaming of getting that point, the winning point in the last second, and backs and go, you know, how can I stop a player? You know, how can I save my team on the last line of defence? So I go with Robert Tipp.
Milan describes it as Tipp's Nicky Quaid moment of this year, and he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Dying seconds, just look at how everything snowballed after it. I was tempted to give it to Robert Doyle. Sean Brennan's save from Galan in the quarter-final was unbelievable save. Unbelievable save. And I loved his reaction to it as well. He gave the fist, he gave the fist like 2 good goals. He calmed down for a second, then he gave it another good goal as well. And it's just like it was an unbelievable save at a crucial time. And you're thinking, if that goes in, Limerick will turn the tide here. Just the oxygen that hitting the net would have given Limerick, you'd imagine maybe in that game as well. So that's what I go with there. We'll do last one. Mystery of the year.
Mystery of the year. I had down again. I kind of went through it. So if your one is different, you can go through it. I just wrote down Cork's second half in the All-Ireland final. It'll always be a mystery to me. I'll never know how. Whatever about losing and getting beat, you know that happens. But how they came out and scored 2 points.
Yeah.
And you know were as bad as they were. Apart from the fact of how great Tipp were, it'll always be a mystery to me.
My mystery is, how did Kildare get beaten by Kerry by a point in the first round of the McDonagh?
The team that got
Kerry went on to be relegated to the Christie Ring, and Brian Downing led Kildare to the Joe McDonagh and to the Leinster Championship next year. It's an absolutely crazy one, because again, it's like half time the other day. Everyone would have said after that result, there's Kildare's chance maybe of even staying up, being gone. And after losing the league final and then been beaten in that and beaten at home, and they go and win 5 games in a row to win the McDonagh, having been the second outsiders in the competition beforehand. It was unbelievable.
I don't know, did you have one down? There was one last one. Did you have a pint of the year?
I let you go first. I didn't have anything written down. I
had a couple. I had Jason Ford with 2 of them. He got one in the 68th minute against Kilkenny, under the Hogan stand off his left, and he hit it. He hit it as hard as you'd see a fella hitting a puck out. And it went so high up, and it was an unbelievable score to put him a pint up such a big time. And he got another pint in the final, where they were under the cosh a bit. They were about 3 or 4 down, and he came out and talk about a manager score that will be replayed 40 times next year before games, because managers love to show scores where forwards are getting tackles from behind. That leads to a turnover score, as they call it. And he came out and he got a hook in the middle of the field, and someone else picked up the break then and gave it back to Gio, and Gio hit it off his left. And so either one from the middle of the field, he didn't even look. He just another rasper off his left. A giant Gio. Whatever one you want to pick, Gio's getting it for me.
I actually can't remember this point totally, but Clare were struggling against Waterford and they were subsequently beaten. I think Duggan scored a one-hander from about 30 yards over the bar. And do you know what I loved? And I'd definitely be pushing for him to get an All-Star nomination. He was absolutely defiant the same day when Clare were going poor. And he was brilliant that day. He was nearly man of the match that day. He should have been, I don't know, did he get man of the match the first day? But he ripped it up against Cork the first day as well. And I just remember him getting a one-hander against Waterford in the first half.
He was good against Waterford when they were beat as well. I'm pretty sure he got about 4. He got at least 3 points that day, if not 4. So I thought it was Peter's best year. I thought one of his best years. He was brilliant.
Yeah,
and I think that keep him going for next year as well, probably. You know.
Hopefully so. Yeah, hopefully so. And it'd be interesting seeing the off season there. I kind of get the feeling. I get the feeling there won't be too many lads stirring there somehow, from my own opinion. We will be fascinated to see whether Aidan McCarthy's back on the panel for 2026 as well, because there was obviously that's from having dealings. That's from having dealings with the Banish store at 3rd level. Yeah,
that's from my own dealings. I was lucky the following year Brian left and Gary Kirby came in. All right, I've no offense given middle.
Pat, you've been super with your time. That's our last hurling show of the year. I have to say to you, you're the viewers' favourite. The feedback we get every time you're on is super. And best of luck in the club campaign. Good team wins 1, great team wins 2. I hope you give it a right good rattle.
Thanks a million, Mick. Thanks for
having me. Talk to you soon, Pat. Good man. Take her handy. Bye. So that was our hurling final review and our hurling year in review. But we have an All-Ireland football final to come this weekend, and I think it's the final most people wanted, probably from a long way out. Jim versus Jack, and we have Adam Minot in here to give us the Kerry angle. And Adam, you still have the hat on. You're still hiding. You're still keeping a low profile. I'd say, what's it like down in Kerry this week? All-Ireland final week, a week like no other.
It's class. It's class. Just walking around town today, the flags are out, the bunting's out, and you wouldn't see much of bunting now around Killarney until this week of the year. But the mood is good. It's, I suppose the diehards have been bed into the football all year, but it's, everyone's kind of joining in now, and everyone's asking you how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? How's Murphy going to, how are we going to do Clifford? This kind of stuff. So it's all coming to the fore now, and All Ireland week in Kerry is very special.
Jim versus Jack as well. Even the two managers, two big characters. McGuinness going for his second All Ireland, his third All Ireland final. Is Jack's 8th final? Am I right in saying going for his 5th across 3 reigns? Obviously, Donegal were beaten by Kerry in 2014. Don't tell me that McGuinness hasn't silently or otherwise wanted a chance at redemption for the guts of the last decade. It feeds in beautifully. Even the contrast in styles probably between the two of them as well.
Yeah, it's a good battle because the two managers are kind of very talismanic, and they're also kind of mysterious as well. You kind of don't know what either of them are up to. Sometimes, McGuinness has this aura about him that he's a bit of a kind of a Jose Mourinho like figure that, that people follow him, and he's seen as having a very good tactical mind as well. And I think that maybe scares opponents as well on top of it. Jack a bit, I suppose, mysterious in a different way in that he gives very little away, has achieved it all. But this would really be a crowning moment for him if Kerry can do the job. But yeah, the contrast in styles is look, I think it's what everyone's talking about going to this game. Donegal like to run it. They like to carry the ball as far as they can and then work it around the edges of the D and see what they can do from there. Defensively, they get bodies behind the ball. They play a zone defense, and I think even going back to the second round of the league, it was supposed to be the first round, but it got postponed. But Kerry played Donegal here in Killarney, and I remember thinking to myself, Jesus, like these boys have this figured out already, and it was the second round of the league. Their defensive structure was just really, really solid, and that was like, I know, fair enough. Would say Kerry didn't have their full team. No, there was no David Clifford and things like that. But they, like Donegal's, I looked at their backs today. It's nearly the same 6 backs that are going to be starting the next day, and it was very obvious straight away that like these boys had the work done even by February, that this was going to be their setup, and they've stuck to their guns all year. And it's been in the back of my mind all year. I've no doubt it's been in the back of Jack O'Connor's mind as well. They're the one team that Kerry played against this year that I was thinking, geez, they're really hard to break down. And Kerry
I actually remember you saying it at the time, even that's 6 months ago nearly.
Yeah. So like it was like, I suppose from Kerry's point of view, they are one of the better teams at unlocking defenses and creating goal chances. As the years gone on, they've gotten better at the 2-pointers the more they've worked on it. But I definitely remember that day thinking, like, from that moment on, I said on the Kerry Football podcast as well, like, how are we going to deal with that? When push comes to shove in the championship, and we're going to find out on Sunday if they figured out a plan for it or not. I know having David Clifford back in there is a plus, obviously, for Kerry, a major plus. The 2-point game coming along for Kerry is also significant. Add into the mix that is Crow Park in July and not, Killarney in February. That all feeds into it as well. But I think it's very daunting from Kerry's point of view. Very daunting. It's one thing saying that, okay, Meath had lots of chances in that first half of the semi-final against Donegal. They kicked a lot of wides. Sure, Kerry will kick those. You'd be hoping they will from our point of view, but you're counting on fellas there kicking the ball over the bar from 45 meters out. Like, that's not a given in any circumstances. So it's shaping up to be I don't know if a classic is the right word, because I don't know if it'll be like that. I think it'll be a bit cagey. I think the way Donegal play naturally is a low risk kind of game. Don't get me wrong, they can be exciting at times, but they're very careful with the ball, and
they're so good at holding on to the ball, aren't they?
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare trying to get it back off him. The angles that they run off the shoulder, the support play, Michael Murphy, being the playmaker up in the forward line, and like they don't make mistakes because they don't really, I suppose, they don't attempt to do anything crazy. It's all it's short, it's hand passes, it's running off the shoulders. They're very, very good at it. And look, Kerry are going to have to be patient. So that's why I'm saying that I know Kerry do like to kick the ball through the lines when they can, but they're going to have to mind it, because if you turn the ball over against Donegal, you'll be a while getting it back, and you might get it back from a kick out because they're probably going to get a shot off at the end of it all. So it's set up to be, as I said, probably more interesting and tactical than an absolute free-for-all. I don't think it's going to be a free-for-all at all, but it's definitely, like, Donegal to me are probably the toughest team that you could put in front of Kerry, at this point.
I was on a panel with Jim Gavin last night out in Toyota Liffey Valley, and he kind of, cagey was the word he said. He doesn't think it will be a thriller. I hope it's a good bit better than the 14 final, because that was a poor final. Obviously had the result that she wanted, but in an All-Ireland final, it's hard to see it being like 126 to 124 or something like that. You're probably more falling back to something like 118, 117, maybe even a little bit less, because there's so much at stake now.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's all on the line, and look, every All-Ireland's important to every team that qualifies for one. Don't get me wrong, but for this Kerry team, the time has gone now for you kind of excuse them losing one. Like, I remember in 23, they lost to Dublin the year after they beat Galway, and obviously we're all disappointed down here. But at the start of that year, I was like, it's going to be hard now to go back to back. Like, teams don't generally do it anymore. So when they lost that final, I was like, look, they gave it a good crack. It was close. You could kind of sympathize with them. It was a tough kind of game. It just didn't go their way. But now, like, last year was very disappointing as well. But now it's at the stage where these guys are entering 26, 27, 28 years of age. There's no more excuses, really. Like, they have to be getting All-Irelands on the board, and like, no more so than David Clifford, who, we all know how good he is and how highly respected he is within the game. But at the end of the day, he knows better than anyone that if he wants to be remembered as one of those, he's aiming for not being a great player. He's aiming for, in many people's eyes, to be one of the greats of all time. Like, one All-Ireland playing for Kerry wouldn't get you into that conversation, really, as good as he is. As I said myself many times, if he retired this year and won no more All-Irelands, he'd still be the best player that I've seen. But if you're talking about greatness and legacy, one isn't enough. It has to be two. It has to be, let's not get carried away, but it needs to be more than that if we're being realistic. But there's so much pressure on Kerry. There's pressure on Donegal. The opportunity comes around for Donegal less often than it does for Kerry. McGuinness has turned them around. They're a new animal now in the last couple of years. But, at the end of the day, their ultimate goal is to win the All-Ireland. And if they fall up short, it'll be massively disappointing for them. So there's a lot on the line. And with that, as you said, those nerves that come with that kind of expectation, the way that Donegal set up, I don't think Kerry are going to be naive and just lump the ball in willy-nilly and hope for the best. So with that in mind, I think it will be a bit cagey at times. Obviously, with the new rules, it's set up to be a bit more open at times. And if teams get space, sure, like Donegal come out the next day and they rarely kick it inside, but they could. They could send Murphy in there. They could put Murphy on top of the square and lump a couple in the top. If I was Jim McGuinness, not that like Jim McGuinness needs a voice for me, but like, I don't see why you wouldn't try that. I don't see why you wouldn't lump a few in and see what happens.
And you know what? If it does happen, it won't be just lumping them in. It'll be something that they could have spent 10, 15 minutes on every night with the view to one day. Do you know what I mean? I remember when we had a great soccer coach in St. Brendan's in Burr, Brian Hensey. We practiced a free at the end of every session. We spent about 5 minutes practicing this free, just for the off chance that it would happen, and we all dispersed, and it was a load of confusion. I think we tried it one day, and it didn't work or anything like that. But we practiced it, and it was going to pull it out. We pulled it out someday or whatever. I just wonder, is that a little kind of ace in the pack that they've been holding back until now, and that's not something that Kerry won't be ready for, but just something that they haven't been road tested for. And listen, maybe it'll happen at the other end as well. Maybe Kerry will start putting in some diagonal ball along into Clifford on McCall and, ask a different question there. But it is going to be fascinating. You'd imagine that with the caliber of coaches involved in both setups, that there's been a few things kept up the sleeve for this particular opponent.
Yeah, I agree. And like, it's not going to be as simple as we understand on the outside. It's not going to be as simple as Donegal's running game against Kerry's supposed kicking game or whatever. There is going to be a few curveballs. Sure, like you mentioned 2014, that's a prime example of teams shifting their approach in the final, just trying to get the job done. Like Kerry changed their tactics altogether in that game just to try and win that game. And it could come down to that. Like Cian O'Neill's involved there. I know that, look, McGuinness is a good tactician, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's something different. But in terms of their overall principles, though, I don't see Donegal going away from their defensive structure a whole pile. I don't see them going man-to-man on guys who aren't in the danger zone. If Paddy Clifford drops back, you have to mind him. But I'd say it'll be a case of, like, you can't abandon, like they've been putting fellas back in the full back line all year, spare. They're not going to abandon that. They're not going to leave Clifford inside in the zone either, or anything like that. So, look, for all the talk I'm doing, I know I'm talking Donegal up an awful lot, but I just genuinely would be scared of them. Having said that, look, I think if Kerry, and I've said this before the last two games as well, if they can break even in midfield and get enough hand on ball, I still think they will create chances, and I still think they'll score. But the same goes for Donegal. If they get on top, they will work their scores just as easy as Kerry does. So it's very hard to call, and I can understand why the bookies are basically calling it a 50-50 game.
Just on the styles as well, I'm of the mind that, like, what are you good at? What brought you to the dance? And stay doing that and perfect. Like, you know what I mean? Donegal are brilliant at carrying ball, and say the angles are running, the speed it happens at, how many options there are. And I don't see them veering away from that, but it could just be when the opportunity arises, maybe on a counter-attack when there's 3 up and maybe Murphy's in there and it's an isolated kind of a ball in or something like that. That I think that would be interesting. You mentioned Cian O'Neill there. Cian lectured me in college back in the day in UL. His inter-county record, this is his 20th season involved at inter-county, unbroken, consecutive. So he spent 2 at Limerick football, 4 with the Tipperary Hurlers, 1 with Mayo, 3 with Kerry, 4 as Kildare manager, 2 as Cork coach, 3 as Galway coach, 1 as Kerry coach, 9th All-Ireland final, 3 hurling. This is 6th football. Second time around in Kerry. He said he wouldn't have left in the first place, only got offered the Kildare job and he couldn't leave it. And he's going for the clean sweep as well, of League, Munster and All-Ireland all in the first season as well. On the ground, what do you hear there? Because, like, I would have heard before, he was the first ever outside head coach I think Kerry ever brought in, and Tomas would have said different things maybe about his training, that they, that booked the trend of what they were doing before. I can remember Galvin having a little pop as well in an Irish Times column too. What do you hear now? He's obviously unbelievably well regarded, and like success has followed literally nearly everywhere he's gone.
Yeah, it's very hard to get a read from the outside on a coach. Even if you do speak to players, we'll say past players now, obviously the current players wouldn't be talking to the likes of me about training or anything like that, but like, it comes down to personal taste. I think there's guys that, certain type of training suits and doesn't suit other fellas, or just don't personally like it. Of course, then if things go well, everything's perfect in some regards. Like the perspective Kerry fans have towards him is very much going to be shaped by what happens on Sunday. There's going to be no middle ground. He's going to be a genius if they win it, and if they don't win it, then like Jack O'Connor's going to get in the neck, Cian O'Neill's going to get in the neck. It's going to be like, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, and Jim McGuinness outsmarted them. That's, to the victor go the spoils, and they write the history books and all the rest of it. But like, generally speaking, from fellas I've spoken to, he's very diligent. He's a real, like, he thinks a lot about the game. Personality wise, I suppose he's a strong personality in there. I'd say he wasn't shy about coming in and changing things and putting his stamp on stuff aside in training as well. So, but like I said, we can talk all day about the likes of Cian O'Neill and perception around him, but it's going to be formed by the results. And if he comes in his first year, his record already speaks for itself. But that would just really copper fasten his status as one of the top coaches to come in straight in his first year with Kerry. When I suppose, look, I know Kerry are always considered to be thereabouts, but there were certain pundits towards the end of last season that were saying that, and I won't name names, but they were saying that this Kerry team are a good bit away from winning the All-Ireland. Even at the start of the year, they were considered to be down the pecking order a little bit in some people's minds. Not in mine personally, to be honest. But so yeah, look, to come in straight away in his first year and to win something, it'd be phenomenal. But yeah, we'll have to see how it pans out for him.
The Footballer of the Year betting, Adam. I found this very interesting. Clifford is 8-11. Who's next best in the betting, and what price do you reckon he is?
I would have thought Michael Murphy.
Yeah, what sort of price?
2-1.
He's even money to be Footballer of the Year.
Right. Okay.
Which I thought was like, it will be some comeback.
Yeah.
A fella who was sitting in the BBC studio this time last year, on the day of the final, comes back and gets Footballer of the Year. How many times has Murphy been nominated for Footballer of the Year?
Jesus. He must have been once. 0. Jesus.
0. Never been nominated.
That is mad. That
Never
just goes
been
to show,
nominated.
you know what that goes to show is that how good he was when Donegal probably weren't getting to semi-finals and finals, you know, and he's still in your mind as one of the best players, like, yeah.
Yeah. Who were the 3 nominated in 2012 when Donegal won the All-Ireland?
Oh, God. 2012. Carl Lacey.
Yeah, Carlesi got it.
Colin McFadden.
Yep.
And was it 3 Donegal?
Yep. Defender. Teak Tough.
No. Go on, tell me.
Frank McGlynn.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Neil McGee was nominated in 2014. I just found
Right.
it amazing that Murphy was never nominated.
Yeah,
Yet, like, imagine to say how well thought of he is, despite the fact he's never been nominated for that. And then I looked at it even thinking how many times Kieran Kilkenny has been nominated. 4 times, I think. And he's not spoken about in the same type of reverence at all. It's gas. It's I think it's mad. I think Clifford will win Footballer of the Year regardless. Even if Kerry lose, providing he chips in with his 3 or 4, like he normally does. The kickouts, Adam, they're massive now. How would you, like, if you're comparing the 2 keepers? Patton's range is probably has a bit more in terms of length and can put that ball over the top. Is Ryan a bit understated or underrated as a keeper? Like, outside of that, you know, the mistake was maybe against Armagh last year, and maybe the short ball that didn't work against Armagh this year. Like, he's a very safe pair of hands. Tends to get the ball away into good areas as well. Like, do you see much of an edge with Donegal in that regard, or you see it even, Stephen?
I think it's even enough. And, like, you know what? There's a lot of you know, pressure on keepers now. In terms of the kick out stats, we know how important the kick out stats have become. But, like, a lot of the time fellas lose kickouts, or the kickouts lost will say it's breaking ball, and it's just, sure, anyone could win that. You might have hit his target in the first place, if you know what I mean.
I love how the keeper is blamed when it doesn't.
Yeah,
someone else
oh, so we lost another kickout, like,
yeah.
But no, I think, to be fair, Shane Ryan is a guy who had to learn on his feet. You know, he plays outfield for his club, obviously. He plays full forward for Atmore and is a brilliant outfielder. I think his kicking's come on loads and loads over the years. And he's very good at getting them off short, and he's very calm. He's a really, really cool head. So I think he probably has the advantage maybe there. He doesn't seem to get rattled. He seems to still, even if he loses one, he'll still pop one short, and he can go left or right with either foot into either corner. I think he's very good at that. He doesn't have the same bomb that Patton does. Patton can land it on the opposite 45. I don't think I've ever seen Shane Ryan do that. So Patton has the advantage there. Like, there is a bit of a wobble in Patton. I think the odd time, maybe if one goes against them, maybe 2 might go against them. You know,
even against Meath the last day, like, he didn't. His first half was ropey. Same against Monaghan.
Yeah, I think Menton going off in that game was a big factor in how Donegal got on top of midfield there. But yeah, I think they're both excellent. To be honest, I think Shane Ryan has done exceptionally well shot stopping this year. He's made a lot of very good one-on-one saves. Way more than we're used to seeing him play. Maybe the fact the game's more open, there might be more goal chances rolling in. But I think it'll come down to who wins the final, who'll get the most All Stars. But geez, he's definitely up there as the top 2 keepers in the country this year. Which I suppose, look, maybe it follows then that the 2 teams are in the final.
I'm going to name 3 players, and I want you to predict to me whether they start. And if they don't start, when they come in, or if they come in at all, okay? Thomas Sullivan, Paul Ganey, Dermot O'Connor. How do you see the 3 of them playing or not playing or featuring, or what way do you see that on Sunday?
Yeah, so I don't think Thomas Sullivan will start, and the reason is that, well, look, I was at the press briefing over the weekend there, last weekend with Jack O'Connor. He said that he didn't train fully last week. They had a training session that morning, the media event on the Saturday, and Tom didn't take fully part in that. So he was hoping that he'd do some training this week or be able to participate fully this week. With that in mind, I think it'd be a big ask for him to come in for a final. I will say as well, on top of that, I don't think the need is actually that great. Like, Tom Sullivan's a brilliant player. Obviously, if he's fully fit, he starts. There's no debate in that. But I think Kerry have done reasonably well. I think Dylan Casey's come in and done well at cornerback. Tom was named at halfback to the game he got injured. Tom probably wouldn't get on the halfback line at the moment on form at this moment in time, because you've Brian Begley one wing, Gavin White the other wing, and Mike Breen the centre back. I don't think you displace either of the three of them for the final. So I can see Tom maybe hopefully being fit for the bench and then coming on and having an impact, hopefully. Diarmuid O'Connor, I don't know. Like, I thought he was done after the Cavan game, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, there's no way this fella's going to come back in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I just couldn't see it. But supposedly he participated fully in training last Saturday. 100% another fella who starts every single time for Kerry. If there's no doubt at all about his injury status, I just think it's a massive risk. If the shoulder can go that easily as it did against Cavan, if you're going to throw him in from the start and the shoulder goes again, how much of a blow would that be psychologically to Kerry? How much of a blow would it be to the player? Like, just, I know he'd be desperate to play and you won't be able to talk him out of it, but if he has to go off after a minute, like, how do you cope with that? Like, and then if you don't bring him on, if you don't start him, then you bring him on and the shoulder goes, then you're using two subs. Like, it's just, I think it's a huge risk. And I love Diarmuid O'Connor. I think he's playing the best footballer of his life, or the best football of his life in the spring. But it's just, unless, look, I'm not a medical expert, the doctors could be going, look, he's perfect. He's completely fine. There's a risk it could go, but there's a risk it could go today or in 6 months' time. We don't know. Throw him in. If Jack's getting that advice, then he'll play some part in the game. But it's just, from looking from the outside, it's hard to see how a guy's shoulder can go that easily so recently and then be okay. Gainey's the one that I personally, I would start him if he's fit. I would throw him straight in if he's fit.
Just for the old head and just the know-how, and even the goal in 14 early. And
sure. He's like, and the goal against Dublin, he's a good man for a goal, in important games, and he doesn't necessarily, and like, he's the type of fella who actually doesn't even have to be playing that well to get a goal, or doesn't have to be playing that well to set up a goal. He just has that touch of class about him. He's a calmness about him, and he has been playing extremely well. I think this is his best year for Kerry in a number of years. I thought he was playing brilliantly before his injury, and it's a different type of injury, whereas Diarmuid's shoulder was kind of popped against Cavan. Paul Gainey had bruising on the bone, which is, I'm sure, painful, and the rest of it, but it might affect your movement.
I had bruising on my bone on my ankle, and I would have preferred if it broke on my ankle. It was so slow.
Really?
Oh my God, unbelievable! You wouldn't believe how slow it is and how painful it is. Yeah. So that's obviously taking a good bit of time, but he seems to have a bit under his belt by all accounts.
Yeah, well, like he was in the squad for the Armagh game even, and Jack said after that game that he could have used him if he needed him. And so he's on the bench again for the Tyrone game. And again, you might say, okay, it was closer than the Armagh game in many ways, but Kerry were still out the gate really with 15 minutes to go. So if you were going to bring him on, there was no point at that stage risking him when the game was practically won. So and as well, look, Thomas Sullivan and Diarmuid O'Connor, brilliant players, but I don't think Kerry are panicking in those departments. I don't think they're under massive pressure to make a change. Whereas with Gainey, I thought Dylan Gainey did fine the last day. Conor Gainey did okay the week before, but they're not operating at that level that Paul was operating at pre-injury. And for that reason, I'd throw him in. I wouldn't be worried about the fact that he hasn't played in a month or whatever it is. I think he just has the head for those games. And on form, the way he played all year, the service he's given, it's hard to say that a fella deserves to start, but I think he actually does deserve it if he's ready to go straight back in. So he'd be the one out of the three that I'd be looking at to start.
Just on it, there's obviously, you've got some lads there, particularly if you're holding O'Sullivan or O'Connor in reserve. You've got a nice bench. McBrearty has been making waves every time he's come in. I'm going to be fascinated to see whether Jason McGee possibly starts for Donegal, and whether I always get mixed up in McColgan and McMonigal. The one of them came on the last day.
Yeah,
And
McColgan started. Yeah,
McColgan started. Yeah, McGonigal
yeah.
came on the last day. There, he's getting closer to it. Upwheel is a great sub to be bringing in as well. It'd be fascinating to see whether the pieces move. They probably won't move too much. They've kind of been looking to get a good 45, 50 minutes out of Hugh McFadden and then bring McGee in. Maybe that's all he has. If he was fully fit, I'm sure he'd be starting. But Donegal have a nice bench there, and they're getting a good hop from them as well. When push comes to shove, Adam, you're probably just leaning towards Kerry, are you?
I suppose I have to. No, like I think. Look, I like genuinely. I think this Donegal team is really good, and I like. Would I be surprised if they came up the next day and won the game? 100% not. But I just do feel that Kerry are going well enough. I'm encouraged by the fact that guys like Shawnee O'Shea, Gavin White, Brian Begley, you wouldn't call them supporting cast, like Shawnee O'Shea is one of the key players, but guys who you would need on top of the reliables like David and Paddy, who are, reliably 8 out of 10, to get those guys on form at this time of year. I don't know if I actually saw it coming a few weeks ago, because I didn't think those guys were flying. But since the quarterfinal, Gavin White's played really well the last 2 games. Brian Begley's coming back into the form that he showed last year as well, when he was unlucky to miss out on an All-Star. Shawnee O'Shea as well, likewise. Graham O'Sullivan's coming into it really strongly. Adding to the mix that Joe O'Connor's playing the football of his life, David Clifford's playing the football of his life. Jason Foley, I think, is a shoo-in for an All-Star. Shane Ryan's playing well. So there's lots of positives there from Kerry at this time of year. I feel like they're ramping up and peaking at the right time. The tactical battle is going to be tough for them. I think Donegal are the toughest team you could put ahead in front of Kerry. As I said, trying to break that down won't be easy. But I have a feeling that Kerry, those middle-eight players that I mentioned there, on top of the midfielders, Sean O'Brien and Mark O'Shea, I think they'll be able to hold their own. They won't blow Donegal out of the water, but I think they'll hold their own. And I think if Kerry hold their own and get enough possession, I think they will create chances. And whether it's on the outside, as we're expecting, shooting from distance, or if the game opens up a bit more towards the end of the final, and they might get a goal or two, I do think that they'll have enough. And I'd be tipping Kerry, obviously with my Kerry hat on as well, but I'd be tipping Kerry by maybe 2 or 3 points.
What's a good day for Brendan McCall?
I mean, like 5 points. Would that be good? Like, like that would be good. Like, you'd be expecting, like, Clifford could. What's he averaging? I mean, he could be averaging 7-8 points a game. Do you know what I mean? Like, so if you get below that in a final, you'd be very happy. But to be honest, like, if Clifford might get 8 and might not be enough for Kerry, it's about the guys around him chipping in as well. Do you know what I mean? So Brendan McCall could get toasted the next day. Clifford might get 1-9 and still might not be enough for Kerry, because Donegal have such a spread of scores themselves. So it's tough, but I don't know what you reckon. Would you be happy with that as a?
I'd be happy with 4 or 5. Yeah, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
The thing about it is as well, like when Shawnee O'Shea shunned the day against Armagh, I thought Clifford played a really smart role. He came into it more towards the end and in that purple patch, but him being tagged so tightly allowed Shawnee O'Shea into more space, whereas the last day they tagged O'Shea really tightly and Clifford went to town. Do you know what I mean? So
that's the thing.
it's
the thing with the new rules.
Difficult one.
Yeah, with the rules, like, you kind of pick your poison. Like, you can't block everything off anymore. So yeah, look, from that point of view, I hope you're right that does happen. I hope that either that they push out on Shawnee and Paddy and these guys, and that takes away Kerry's 2-pointers, but then the goals open up inside. That'd be even better. But I'm sure Jimmy McGuinness will have every eventuality planned for.
I think Donegal will do it. I think Jimmy will get his revenge. I think it'll be very, very tight. I think it will be fascinating and intriguing. I don't expect free flowing, but I do expect to see a fair bit of spice in it. I do expect expect the unexpected a small bit and see some things maybe that we haven't seen in a while, or things that they've kept in their back pocket for a while. But it's going to be a fascinating final. We'll be back at the tail end of next week to review it all. Adam will have a positive hangover. He's hoping big difference between a positive one and a negative one. But great stuff as always, Adam, and huge thanks to our sponsors, Lottoland. As I said, we'll be back for the last show of the year next year. We'll review the All-Ireland final and review all of what has been a brilliant football county season. So we'll see you late next week. Thanks a million. Come on, Adam.
Cheers, Burnett.